Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome into another Union Arena full set breakdown. Today we're going to be diving into every single Red Evangelion card that we've got from the new upcoming set. And just so you guys know, if you aren't aware, we are doing this about 1 month early, just in preparation for Nationals, get everybody sort of on board with the set, looking at the set here, start playing some games after this, more games if you haven't seen the ones I've uploaded already. And yeah, just to get everyone ready for Nationals, get some information out on these decks, get experience out with them, and maybe even help people prep for counters to these decks as well, because as strong as Evangelion looks, I do think it is very beatable for sure. I don't think it's play Eva to win 100%. Undoubtedly, these are insane looking decks, especially red and yellow, and even purple looks really strong, but I don't think it's play Eva and win, honestly. If anything, I think Red Kenshin is still the most disgusting deck to go in with. But with that all said, hopefully you guys enjoy, and we're going to be diving into every single red card here. And if you aren't aware, these are the Japanese translated cards through experts.dev. Massive shout out to this website for, I plug them in tons of videos. If you haven't seen the ones I've posted on them, definitely check it out in more detail, or just go check out the website itself. But yeah, they have a Japanese version of Union Arena, all the Japanese sets translated to English. Just for reference, in the Japanese translated cards, it does say outside area instead of sideline, just so everyone knows, but I will just be reading these out as English cards, so I'll just say sideline instead of outside. That's what that means. And I believe the only other wording that's different in the Japanese translated cards is on retired. Again, just when sidelined is what that would mean. So just for reference, just pointing that out now in case you are confused on that. Remove from play is still the removal area, just so everyone knows. Now, once we get the full English set list, about a month after I drop this, basically middle of January when we do the full English set list breakdown, I'll be pointing out any differences, any cards they didn't include, any bans possibly, so keep that in mind. There are changes to the English set list that they could make that we have no idea until they actually drop that officially. And on top of that, there is an Evangelion starter deck in Japan, but Yu Yu Hakusho and Code Geass were both sets that they just merged the starter deck with the main set. So we have no idea if we're actually getting this starter deck as a starter deck, which I honestly hope we do. Just, you know, more entry level, easier to dive into, new player friendly things, and just cheaper SRs, less to pull from the main set. But there's a possibility that they literally just merge the starter deck with the main set and they up the SR rate, so you have more SRs to possibly pull. So yeah, with all that, just take that all with a grain of salt. We have no idea what's going to happen. And yeah, let's go ahead and start it out here. Red Evangelion, pretty stupid looking set, honestly. You're going to have two main decks that you can build from, but honestly, you can definitely do some deck mixing. While one deck is more dependent on no triggers, and that's what it really wants to see in a lot of its, games and a lot of its turns. There is the other set based around Evangelion Unit 1, aka Shinji's Eva. If you've seen Evangelion, it's a wild anime. Very interesting one for sure. And yeah, the cards definitely play fantastic into like how the anime works. Rei powering the Evas and stuff. It's wild. Anyways, if you haven't seen with what you're trying to do with this set here, you're going to have one deck completely based around Reis and Shinjis. With the Shinji Reis, this one here is pretty straightforward. It's going to have impact. When attacking, you're going to want either 4 to 8 energy requirement cards on your energy line, so that when he swings, you can give him a damage 2 or impact 1. Pretty straightforward card. The Reis here are going to be crazy, basically wanting to be sidelined and letting you draw cards when they're sidelined. The Eva 0 raids for the Rei Eva units. One of them even reducing the action point and energy cost of the next Shinji you played, while she retires herself to draw you 2 cards and sideline one of your opponent cards. It's crazy. This is a nuts set. Granted, Red is trying to ramp up here, so it is going to take a little bit of setup, but there are some great energy generating options. And then the king of all the cards here, Evangelion Unit 1 Pseudo Evolution, the 7 cost Shinji Raid. This card's wild. It's essentially going to be a triple attacker. It's putting cards from your sideline Rays specifically underneath this card. When it's attacking, you're putting those cards into your hand so that you're getting extra attacks to restand him. The first one, if you are putting the number you want for Rays underneath him, the first one you can't even be hit by triggers. And then the last thing on this card, when he has no cards underneath him, he's swinging with an impact 3, which as long as your opponent doesn't have impact nullifies, essentially means your opponent can't block this card. That's literally what it's saying. Not to mention he's a 10k when he's attacking with that. So when this card is wild once it's set up and he's on board. That's the only other thing though, is it takes a little bit of setup for sure. And then the other red deck here, definitely more, I don't know if it's more consistent, but it's a lower cost requirement, so it's probably going to have just slightly better games in that sense. I feel like playing a 7 can be a little annoying at times, but regardless, this deck here is playing around no triggers. The main card that you really want is going to be this card here, essentially turning your no triggers into get triggers, so you can put them into your hand as long as she's on the board. And the other really standout thing is her raid here, the Evangelion Unit 2 Berserk mode. It's going to have damage 2 when raided, and then once per turn you can trash 2 no trigger cards in your hand to give her a restand for a second damage 2 attack. You can only do that if your opponent has a card on the front line, but essentially playing into some really, really high pressure turns. On top of that, the other raid, the Evangelion Unit 2 for Asuka, it's going to be a free play card, which also allows you to draw 2 trash 1. But again, really, really playing off of no triggers, because she allows you to play a character up to a 3 cost for free when played, or a 4, depending on how many no triggers you have on the field. So that's essentially what both decks are playing for, is a pretty good setup. You need no triggers in life, you need no triggers on the field for one deck. The other deck, you need to see different rays in your sideline, and you need to get them in there. This Shinji doesn't really want to be in your hand, it wants to be in your sideline. So with all the deck filtering in the other deck, that's essentially what both of these decks are playing for, is really good setups, but they're not super hard to get to for sure. And again, on top of that, there's some deck mixing you can do, especially because a few of the rays don't have triggers. So I definitely see the vision in deck mixing for sure, like throwing in this 5 cost to take advantage of putting rays in the sideline, getting extra pressure while not raiding off your Shinjis if they're not ready and stuff like that, because this is an on-play card that you really need to, play them out when you have the rays in the sideline. But yeah, a wild deck here. I think they're going to be pretty standout, but once we dive into yellow in the next breakdown, you'll really see why yellow is the one people are talking about. It's pretty insane. But red looks awesome. It looks really good. I just hope, it can consistently do what it wants to do every game, since, you need to get those perfect setups essentially for both the decks. And diving into it here, starting it out with the 7-drop Shinji here, your big raid that you're trying to get out. This card gains all of the following effects based off the number of cards face down underneath this character. So if you have no cards face down underneath him, again, this does not count the card you raid on top of because he's face up. If you have no cards, he's just going to straight up be a 10k impact 3 when you're attacking. Otherwise, he's a printed 5k, which we love. If you have 4 or more cards underneath him face down, this character cannot be chosen by your opponent's trigger effects. So when he's attacking with 4 or more underneath him, he's going to get a second attack off. It's so good. Granted, Red Kenshin, their character abilities, I should say, if they raid out of life, Kenshin, for example, push a character back, would completely shut this down. Keep that in mind. But yeah, he can't be hit by trigger effects. And at the end of each of this character's attack, you can look at the face down cards underneath this character, reveal up to 2 of those cards, and add them to your hand. So you could just do 1 card if you wanted to, but you're trying to put 2 cards, because if you do add 2 cards with this ability, after attacking, you set him to active. So attack goes off, trigger happens, they draw or whatever it was, you take 2 rays, put them into your hand that were in your sideline, and then restand him. And then the last part of it here, probably the most important part, is putting the rays underneath him. So on play, you can place 1 of each red ray with different required energy from your outside area face down underneath this character. So that's essentially what you're doing, is before you raid this card out, you're essentially trying to get each of the rays into your sideline, and you're going to have 1 in every cost, essentially, a 0 cost, a 1 cost, a 2 cost, and in the starter deck, a 3 cost here. So once you raid him out, that's essentially what you want, is to have 1 of each cost in there so that you can put all 4 underneath him. Now, there is a special card here that we can jump to that is another way to put rays underneath your Shinjis, which is going to be this 6-cost special. Ayanami, give me your hand, come on. This card can only be used if there's a Shinji on your field or a Unit 1 in its name. Choose 1 character on your opponent's front line with 5k or less and sideline it, and then place 1 ray from your outside sideline underneath a Shinji on your area that does not have a face down card under it. What kind of sucks about this is it has to be a Shinji. It can't be the Evangelion unit raid. That would be awesome if this special could actually recharge the Evangelion 7-cost raid, but this does not count as a Shinji, so this is sort of a nice way to set up your rays before you do the actual raid, essentially. Maybe if you have 2 1 costs in the sideline and then a 0 and a 2. Essentially, this is one way to put 4 under without having 1 of each cost underneath. So that's essentially what you're trying to do, is get this guy out with 4 so that you can attack, put 2 into your hand while obviously not getting hit by a trigger, attack again, hopefully doesn't die to that trigger, put another 2, the remaining 2, back into your hand, and swing one more time, essentially a triple attack card when he comes out. And again, 0 cards for the rest of the game. Underneath him, he's going to be unblockable, essentially. A 10k impact 3. No one's going to want to block that, right? They're just going to take the 1 life directly. So really crazy card, especially when you get to endgame, like he's essentially guaranteeing attacks off. And it's going to be great pressure again in endgame with this 5 cost that just has impact all the time, or in the best situations, impact 1 damage 2. Now, there's going to be quite a few different ways to get Reis into your sideline, but I feel like one of the best ways is going to be with this Shinji Rei target here, your color trigger for the deck. So there's going to be a 4 cost, 2 action point. That's essentially it. If he comes out from your hand on play, you can swap him with a character on a different line. But the real value to this card is the active main. When in the sideline, you can trash 2, play him out for a 1 action point instead of 2. And you have to have 4 energy to play him. That's essentially what this is saying. He can only be activated if you have the fulfilled required energy. Best case scenario with this is not only are you playing him out for a 1 instead of a 2 action point now from your sideline, but you're also able to just straight up put any 2 Reis if you wanted to. You know, preferably it's just any 2 cards. But you can trash any 2 Reis, essentially, get him into the sideline, and boom, now he's on the board, hopefully ready to raid out the 7. So that's going to be a fantastic way to, especially after putting them back into your hand with this card, use this Shinji from your sideline and just sort of redo the whole process, get the Reis back into the sideline. Obviously, the other great ways are going to be just blocking with the Reis on the front line, raiding on top of the Reis with your raid targets, and then sidelining these cards. But there's going to be other options too as well. So that's going to be one of your main goals, obviously, with the filtering too, with all the cards that you're going to see that we'll get into, is getting cards into your sideline so that they have more value there. The other Shinji Rei targets we have a 2 cost that will come out as a 0 if your field is empty. These are so good to have. On play, you can look at the top card of your deck and you can place it on the top of your deck or into your sideline. So if you see a Rei you don't need or that 2 action point Shinji, straight up into the sideline just like you want it to be. With an active trigger, 2k BP, this is such a good Rei target to have. Especially, again, the fact that he comes out as a 0 with an empty field. And then our traditional 0 cost Shinji add to hand raid target. And then we're also going to have a 1 cost triggerless step Shinji, which honestly, if you find the room for it, wouldn't be a terrible addition, but I feel like this is obviously more for the no trigger deck since we have pretty solid Shinji raid options here with only the 2 raids. I don't think we're going to really need him in this deck, but he is there if you feel like you need the raid target. Never a bad idea to have more raid options for sure. And then the other Shinji Raid here, a pretty straightforward card, but and a fantastic addition to the deck because he's not really Rei dependent. You know, you can use this card throughout the game even if you don't have the Reis in the sideline yet. And this guy's going to be a little bit easier to get out since he's a 5 cost, so he'll be an impact 1 when attacking. Rest any number of active cards on your energy line, and this character is going to gain all of the following effects based on the total required energy of all the cards rested by this effect. So if you rest 4 or more required energy, he's going to get 3 KBP. And then if you can rest 8 or more required energy, he's going to get damage 2. So that's essentially the goal with him. Rest 8 required total energy on your energy line, make him an 8k impact 1 damage 2. Again, you get both these raids out in endgame, and you're essentially guaranteeing attacks are going through, right? Impact nullifies are going to be very important against this deck also, I should mention, because again, that you can easily shut this card down by when it attacks for 10k impact 3, you just block it with a nullify, right? So just keep that in mind, but there is some pretty good removal in this deck too, so impact nullifies will probably die. Then we have this really good side card that's going to help with searching out your Eva units as well as get the energy generation up and really help with that 5 cost Shinji raid in order to help you rest that 8 required energy, almost guaranteed hopefully. So 4 cost Operation Room, on play look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Eva unit 0 or 0/1 in its name, add it to your hand. You place the remaining on the bottom and then don't trash a card, which almost, I feel like we'd want to trash a card in this deck, but it never hurts not trashing, that's for sure. And then active main once per turn, you can choose 1 card on your energy line and set it to active. So the turn you play this card, you can just straight up set it to active as a 4 cost, or every turn after you've played it, any cards you play on the energy line, you can restand them with this card's ability, so that your 5 cost is almost always getting that 8 cost attack out. So it's getting the impact 1 damage to 8k. Yeah, this card is going to be a great addition, on top of the fact that it's an add-to-hand trigger, double energy gen, so even just with finding your other Eva units or helping get out your 7 costs, this is going to be such a great addition. I'll probably run this at like a 2 or 3 of. Again, the get trigger, you only need 1, I feel like, and you don't want too many sites, so if it just pops up in life, boom, you've got it, you're ready to go. This is going to be a really nice card. And then while we're on the topic of Shinji here, you do have another special that I honestly would recommend not going for of this. A 6 cost special feels kind of bad. You know, you're gonna want to wait to use it until you can place Reis under Shinji's, and you know, that's not always the greatest ability. I don't know. With that, if you want the option, there is a 4 cost, pretty traditional, strong special here. High output, second prototype, Cell F propelled 460 millimeter positron cannon. That's a crazy name. Anyways, choose one character on your opponent's front line with 3k or less and sideline it. But if you have Shinji or Unit 1 on your area, 5k instead. And it's a 4 cost, so while, you know, this does have the added benefit and possibility of putting a Rei from your sideline underneath Shinji's like we pretty much want, you know, we do have this lower cost option as well. A 2-2 split probably wouldn't be bad, or maybe like a 3-1 or something like that. Because this is going to come in handy, no doubt. The games where you've got tons of Reis in the sideline, but you don't have all 4 different types. This card will really help with that whole process of getting the 4 that you want underneath that raid. So yeah, that's pretty much all the Shinjis that we have for the deck here. Diving into the Reis, which is going to be a very important part of the deck here, obviously. You're going to have 4 different raid targets, and then the 2 different Reis that are very nice additions. Starting it out with the best raid, obviously, the insane 6 cost Evangelion Unit 0. So it's a 6 cost, raids on top of Rei, active main when on the front line, sideline this card, so you choose when to do this. Choose up to 1 character on your opponent's front line and retire it. During this turn, reduce the required energy and action point cost of the next Shinji or card with Unit 0 in its name from your hand by 1. On top of that, when sideline, draw 2 cards, so if you do it with this ability or when blocking, whatever, draw 2 cards. But yeah, so you can not only reduce the action point energy of the next Shinji, but on top of all this, you're also sidelining one of your opponent's cards. Obviously, the added benefit to all this as well is if you're missing the 1 Rei you don't have in your sideline before you raid him out, you can raid on top of that Rei with this card. She'll put that Rei into the sideline for you, so that's just going to be such a great combo. You're also drawing 2 on top of it all. This is a crazy strong card. You just want to make sure you're going to have the bodies to supplement, because obviously sidelining one of your own cards to play out another card for free sounds good, but you want to make sure you're not just always having 1 body on the front line, you know? But I mean, you're playing out a triple attacker, so it's a crazy card. It's a crazy card. Also reducing the action point, which just, I think that's the big key wording in here, is not only does it reduce the cost, but it also makes it a free action point play. That is so crazy. So yeah, insanely strong raid here for Rei. We'll just look at the other raid here because it's pretty straightforward. 4 cost Evangelion Unit 0. She's going to have double block, and then when sidelined, you can draw 2 cards, and then you're allowed to trash 1 card from your hand into the sideline, and if you do, you can play a red Rei with a required energy of 1 or less from your sideline rested to your area. So, you know, that's not bad. Also, that's another Japanese thing. I think this would say field in English, but just anywhere on the field. That's not bad. You definitely don't want to take Reis out of your sideline, but the thing that I think is going to be really beneficial with this card is the fact that you can sideline cards with this card to do that. So, again, if you have a bunch of Reis in your sideline and you want to get the specific one that you need in your hand into the trash, you can essentially swap those Reis. It does need to be a 1 or less that you play for free, so, you know, one of these two, those would be your only options. But honestly, again, even if you aren't playing a Rei from your sideline, this is another way to get cards from your hand into the sideline. You could even use this card's ability to trash this Shinji here, which has a lot more value in the sideline, right? Maybe there's 2 Reis that you have in your hand with this card, then you need all of them in your trash. You sideline this Shinji here, use his ability to trash those 2 Reis, and then you play him. There's going to be a lot of combo potential in this deck for sure, on top of flavor options. And again, the double blocking is so sick too. You can like block a smaller body and then block with her potentially to get the one sidelined if your opponent would allow that. Regardless, whatever it may be, yeah, this is going to be a nice addition for sure. Because that's going to be the one thing you need in this deck is ways to put cards into your sideline. There's going to be quite a few turns where you're like, I need this card in my hand in the sideline. How do I do that? And there's other options outside of these cards too, as we'll get into. And then diving into our 4 different Reis here, 1 of each cost. Our 0 cost, our traditional active main risks this card once per turn. She's going to be a double energy gen till the end of the turn, but then she goes into your trash at the end of your main phase. Honestly, just that ability alone is nice, but even just for tapping her and then raiding on top of this Rei when she's a double gen instead of her going to sideline, we'll take advantage of the card. Really nice that they gave this card that we see in every set, the Rei name. So good. And then we have a 1-cost Rei. On play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, place up to 1 of them into your sideline, and then place the remaining on the top of your deck in any order. So we're going to have a lot of filtering cards throughout, as you'll see, that allow us to put cards into our sideline, but also reorganize those cards if we do want to keep them all. Draw trigger, 1500, really nice addition here. And then a 2-cost Rei, impact nullify, active main once per turn. You can only activate this ability if there's 2 or more Reis with different required energies in your sideline. Until the start of your next turn, increase this character's energy generation by 1. So she's essentially a double energy generator as long as you have 2 different Reis with different required energy in your sideline. And it goes until the start of your next turn too, which is so good for, again, you don't have many double energy generators. She's one of your few. Now you've got one, and you can raid out of life potentially if you do hit one of those like raids, because you have a lot of raids that you would want to raid out of life in this deck. So yeah, that just added line of text until the start of your next turn is so nice. No trigger, but 3k BP is really good. And again, impact nullify too, that could save you in some games, no doubt. So yeah, that's our 0, our 1, our 2-cost Rei, because again, the different required energy for Reis is very important while they're in sideline. Our last one here, our 3-cost Rei. On play, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, place any number of cards among them onto the top of your deck in any order, and then trash the remaining. So you can essentially sideline the top 2, reorganize the top 2, whatever you want it to be. If you see 2 Reis up there that you want in sideline, this is going to be such a nice card. She's also a double energy generator, active trigger. This is definitely one of the better ones. And again, if we do get the starter deck, keep in mind, these are all going to be starter deck exclusive. Very important to point out. I believe it would be from this final on... No, it would be from, I believe, this character onward. These are starter deck exclusive cards. You can only get them in the starter deck unless they merge it with the main set like they did Yu. We'll have to wait and see. And then that pretty much does it for all of our Rei and Shinji cards. Something to point out, we do have this event card. Don't know if it's going to see too much play, but it isn't the worst card in the world. 2 cost, you won't die, I'll protect you. You choose a Shinji or a unit 0 in its name on your area and give it 3k until the start of your next turn. That is definitely pretty nice. You can essentially guaranteed to keep that card alive. Maybe it has more value than I realize, honestly, because that's pretty nuts. You make your card an 8k until the start of your next turn, whichever one you want to keep alive, your 7 cost, for example. Now, your opponent that could only sideline 5ks or less can't sideline your card, and you get it next turn. That's actually pretty nuts. Hold up, this card might have some value. It just sucks that it's an event. On top of that, you can also rest one of your active Reis to draw a card. So, for 1 action point, it's almost a guaranteed protection for your raids from at least getting specialed or BP reduced, right? And you also get a draw. It's not the worst card in the world. Again, until the start of your next turn, there's some value there, no doubt. And while this card isn't Rei or Shinji specific, I feel like it could also see some play as well. It's got a lot of value because with how many raids we have in this deck, there's definitely going to be some occasions where we just want to slap down a unrated raid card on the front line rested, especially the 7 cost, because it could be a 5k body, right? We actually have something that makes that play even better. 4 cost dummy plug system. So you can choose 1 card with raid that is not in raid state on your area, set it to active, give it 1k BP, and you get to give it snipe as well. That is pretty stupid. Setting it to active, giving it 1k was already a pretty nice touch, right? It turns any raid card into a 2 action point set active. That's not terrible, but also giving it snipe so you can get a removal off as well. That's pretty crazy. And again, this is a deck with 4 raid options here. So like there's undoubtedly going to be turns where playing out one of these raid cards, again, especially the printed 5k just as a vanilla rested, now you spend the next action point to just set it active and snipe something. This could see some value, I feel like. This could definitely see some play. It's a draw trigger as well. Don't rely on it for sure, but again, the fact that you're removing something, the sniper part, that is just the best part, no doubt. On top of setting active, of course. But yeah, definitely consider this for sure. I could see this really coming in clutch in some games. It just comes down to with these event cards, as we've discussed many other times, is we're limited to action points. If that 1 action point isn't playing out a body for us, and instead it's doing one of these things, how much is that really benefiting us, you know? This is essentially a special, though. This is essentially a removal, so I see the value in this. This one's a little more hard to justify because it's really just protection, but that could still be good as well. It's just a little more matchup dependent. Either way, wow, we have some really nice event flavor cards that you could splash in for sure. Some other cards that I imagine were pretty much intended for this deck. If anything, I think they're going to be great additions if you want to splash them in. 2-cost Gendo and Kozo. Active main, rest this card, draw a card, trash a card. No trigger, 2k BP, but again, I mean, maybe it's not super necessary, but I've played some games and seen some games where like you have cards in your hand, you have 2 AP Shinjis or you have Reis in your hand that you just want in your sideline. Having a card that just every turn draws and trashes and you benefit from putting cards in the sideline, I think this could see some value. The no trigger kind of sucks and now you got to find room for it, but that is a card. There's also your pretty generic 0-cost Misato. On play, draw and trash a card with a draw trigger. This is a fantastic card, and again, allowing you to put cards into your sideline that you want in your sideline, so that could be really big. We've also got this 3-cost Misato. Probably, I don't know, I mean, it's just a double gen and it's a 3-cost, so it could help with the 5-cost rate, I feel like. But anyways, on play, choose one of the following. You can buff a character by 1,000, or you can choose one character on your area and move it to the other line. With the draw trigger, the double gen is definitely the biggest value here in the 3-cost. I see this working well with that 5-cost Shinji raid, you know, allowing you to sort of have more bodies on the front line. I mean, this could definitely see value because there's also games, again, where you're trying to get raised in the sideline and they're on your energy line. So you use this card to push them up and block with them and put them into your sideline, you know. I can see some value in this card, no doubt. So yeah, again, these are all really nice additions to the Shinji and Rei deck that I think could really, really help it thrive. There's also 2 different finals here if you care at all. I think you should Smile is the one you're supposed to be running, just so you know. But doesn't matter. You're more than welcome to run. It feels good to talk to someone, whatever you're feeling that day. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for all the cards intended for the Rei and the Shinji deck here. We also have, I guess you could mention, this 2-cost Special Agency Nerve card here. It's a field card on play. Place 1 card from your hand into the sideline. If you do, draw 2 cards. Again, a way to put cards into the sideline that you want there. On top of that, it's an active main rest. Retire this card to draw 1. So it's almost a draw 3 for trashing 1. But it's a little bit more beneficial than an average event card because it actually generates you energy for a turn, helps you not brick, you know, because it's a field for 2. So, you know, not the worst card to draw 3 and get a card into your sideline that you really want in there, because this is going to be a deck, I promise, where you have a handful of cards that you don't want in your hand. You want to put them into your sideline so that they have more value there. But within the Rei and Shinji cards, keep in mind, there are ways to also do that as well. So you don't have to go outside of the really important cards for sure, just to trash stuff. Now, diving into the triggerless deck that we have here, based around Evangelion Unit 2. I actually haven't watched, I guess these are based around the movie. I've only seen the original anime. I don't remember Mari Illustrious, so I mean, I'm imagining this is part of, these are all based from the theatrical movies, if you guys aren't aware. I imagine this is like part of the movie exclusive stuff. I really don't know, so couldn't really tell you, but regardless of the lore, they're both in Evangelion Unit 2. It's just one's in Berserk mode. I'm curious to see what happens in the movies. But anyways, with that, very interesting deck here where we're just trying to get triggerless cards in our hand, triggerless cards on the field, and we're essentially just going for a traditional red rush. That does actually work really well. It's just in some situations, having triggerless cards in your life feels terrible because you need certain cards on the field in order for that to actually benefit you. So starting it out with, in my opinion, definitely the best card, the one you're trying to spam out the most, the 5-cost Evangelion Unit 2 Berserk mode. Yeah, it's the damage 2, and then once per turn, at the end of this character's attack, so once your opponent's, you know, taken life, as long as you haven't gotten specialed or whatever, if there is a character on your opponent's front line, that's another thing, they have to have a character. You may place 2 cards without trigger from your hand into your sideline, and if you do, you set this character to active and give it 3k, so now it's attacking again for 7k damage too. Pretty nuts. Very good pressure, especially at a 5-cost. With the draw power in this deck, I definitely see this card being really, really annoying. Granted, you could just block its first attack, not have any blockers. Now it can't restand, but odds are they're going to have other attackers at that point. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to make blocking a very interesting game for sure. And then we're going to have this 4-cost Evangelion Unit 2 here, which is going to be a really nice board flood draw card as well. So on play, you can actually play an extra red card without a trigger and with a required energy of 0 or less from your hand rested on the field. And then for each card on your field without trigger, you can increase the required energy of the card that you're going to play with this effect. So if you have 3 cards with no triggers, now you can play a 3 or less from your hand. And then after you've played that character, If there are 4 or more cards without trigger on your field, you get to draw 2 trash one. So really nice for draw power, really nice for board flooding. It's a 4K raid at the end of the day too. So this is going to be a pretty solid addition just for helping with the traditional, red rushing. It's also nice how they separated her effect here, so you can be at 3 characters when you raid her, play the 4th character with her ability, and then it still counts as the draw 2 trash one. Pretty solid addition here with how much you're doing with like trashing with this card, for example, and stuff like that, just helping you with deck filtering. And again, the board flooding is the best part, being able to play a 4 cost for free. That's pretty wild. And then looking at the raid targets here, definitely the most important one to be running for sure. The one that's going to really help this deck flow is the 3-cost Mari Illustrious Makinami. Opponent's turn. During your opponent's turn, when a card without trigger is placed from your life to your trash, if there are 4 or more cards without trigger on your field, you may rest this active card. If you did, add the card that was placed, add up to 1 card that was placed from your life to your sideline into your hand. And you can only use this effect once per turn, even if you do have 2 of her on the field. She's also an on-play, draw 1, trash 1 with a double energy gen. But that's essentially it. If you have 3 other cards with no trigger, 4 including her on your field, when you take a no trigger from your life when your opponent attacks, you have the option to rest her and add it to hand. It does state up to 1, so if you do take a damage 2 and there's 2 cards in there with no triggers, you do have to just pick one of them, and then the other one does go to sideline still. But yeah, that's essentially the game plan, right? Turn your no triggers into get triggers, which is pretty solid. Nothing on what yellow's doing with its like life game plan or whatever, but life manipulation, but this is not bad. And then the other card that's going to benefit from your life having no triggers while you're taking damage is going to be this 2-cost Asuka. During your opponent's turn, if your opponent hits a no trigger in your life and it goes to sideline, if you have 4 or more cards without triggers, just like the Mari card, this card is going to get 2k BP during this turn. And then this effect can only be used once per turn, even if you have a second Asuka on the field. But essentially, she can turn a no trigger into a not even an active trigger. She just gets 2k BP. I don't know if it's really... I mean, there's a lot of other benefits to no triggers, right? We're going to have filtering and getting cards off of no triggers and stuff like that. But yeah, that's... Yellow is definitely doing a different, better, like, trigger game, I'll say. Anyways, no trigger like we want. And these are raid targets for our raids, obviously. One's for Asuka, one's for the Mari. The other Mari raid targets we're going to have, so yeah, those are the 2 cards that are actually going to affect the no triggers in your life. We have this 1-cost Mari card. On play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Our traditional search for a 0/2 or a character with no trigger, which is pretty solid. Add it to your hand and then trash a card if you did take one. No trigger, of course, but yeah, she can essentially search out any no trigger card or her raid. Or I guess either raid, actually, because it's 0/2 Berserk and 0/2, and it's just saying with 0/2 in its name. So really good search card. It can basically search any card in your deck that's not your final or specials, or a card with a trigger. But the raids will be searchable. That's nice. And then this is a pretty solid 0. On play, look at the top 2 cards. Place up to 1 card without trigger into your sideline. Place the remaining onto the top of your deck in any order. So it's a nice filter, but you can also trash the no trigger card if it's one you don't want to see. And then one of the best cards in the deck here, no doubt, 2-cost Asuka. She's going to be a 0-cost if you have no cards on your field, which we love. On play, look at the top card of your deck, and if that card has a no trigger, you can reveal it to your opponent and add it to your hand. And then if you didn't reveal it, you just put it on top of your deck. And then if you didn't add it to your hand, you just place it back on top of your deck. But yeah, a great card just for an on-play draw 1, essentially, right? We're assuming it's going to be a no trigger. Maybe we play her after this 0-cost, so we know it's going to be a no trigger. But yeah, really, really nice additions there. I love that we're getting more of these 2s that count as a 0. That's wild, actually. We got 2 different ones within red, so you could actually run both of them in some weird hybrid and have 2 different 2 costs that come out as 0s. Very, very not bricky at that point, right? The least bricky game ever. Least bricky deck ever. And then we have a 0-cost Asuka here. She's going to be our Impact Nullify, no trigger. Again, I don't think we're going to have get trigger 0s because we don't want get triggers. We want no triggers in the deck. So yeah, but that's what's gonna suck is like if you don't set up this Mari, the no triggers are just genuinely no triggers, and it's gonna feel kind of bad. Yeah, but it's gonna be a fast, high pressure deck, right? I'm sure it's not gonna be one to count out, I'll say that, but I don't think it's gonna be top tier, man. Those no triggers across 8 games at a regionals is gonna feel bad. Another no trigger, we do have 0 Pen on play. Choose one character on your field, and it gets 1k till the end of the turn. I will say that's going to be a pretty nice thing about this deck, is it's going to give a lot of value to cards that normally don't have triggers. Maybe not necessarily this generic bounce back, you know, our 1-cost, return a card to your hand when you play them. But maybe cards like this will get a lot of value or really just help the deck flow. A 3-cost that can be played out as a 2 if you are up against a yellow or a purple deck. Especially since yellow will probably be seen a lot at regionals. Again, I don't think anyone's playing this deck at regionals. Maybe if you are, consider this. But just in general, if you're playing this deck, now this card that never has a trigger can be played out with a no trigger. It can be considered or can give you value since it doesn't have a trigger, you know. And if you're up against one of these potential decks, especially in an Eva rare battle or something, now it's a 2-cost 3k double energy gen, which is fantastic. So just keep that in mind. The cards with no triggers, even if they don't go on this deck or if they don't seem like they're gonna affect your game plan at all, they're still no triggers, so they're gonna be nice to include. Maybe like this card, for example. Or like the card, this Ritsuko, who's the generic, when active, generate 2 energy. You know, normally it sucks that they don't have a trigger, but now you're getting the benefit of them not having a trigger. So there's that. Also, there is one other raid in the no trigger deck. I forgot about it until now because it doesn't have a trigger, obviously. It's the 4-cost Evangelion unit, Provisional Unit 5. It's going to be Mari Illustrious's other raid target here. On play, if you have 4 or more cards without trigger on your field, draw a card, and then when sidelined, you can choose one character on your opponent's front line and switch it to resting. So pretty nice defensive card, pretty nice draw engine here. Triggerless edition as well, sure. But yeah, it's another raid that you can include in the deck. Yeah, if only this Evangelion unit, if only her wording was reduce the AP of the next card without a trigger you play from your hand or something, because then you could raid out for no action points, right? But she's saying literally play a red card rested. So unfortunately, you can't raid off of her ability. That would be nice, though. If you could use her ability to use this raid, that would be nice for free. I will say, we do have this card that might play really well into the deck off of the Asuka Raid's ability if you play this for free. 4-cost Evangelion Unit 03. On play, you may retire an Asuka on your field if you did switch this character to active and draw a card. So you can essentially use her to play this card out for free and active as well as a 4K. That could be, this is definitely going to pair well with her if you're going to play anything for free. That's going to be one of your best things. And then we have the special for the no trigger deck here. Pretty generic, but at the same time could be an amazing card since it can sideline up to an 8k. 4-cost Super Electromagnetic Crossbow. Choose one character on your opponent's front line with 2k or less and sideline it. But for each card without a trigger on your field, increase the BP range of the character you choose with this effect by 1,000. So let's say you have, if you have 8 no triggers on your field, you can choose a 10k with this, essentially. But realistically, raids are going to be on the field. You got to have at least one card on the field, like a draw or something. But raid targets, for sure, the raid triggers will be on the field. So I'd say you're probably averaging like a 5 to a 7k with this card. But still, you're probably never going to have issues sidelining lower than a 5k with this. So that's always nice. There's also this event card that you could include, but I've mentioned it before. Even drawing 3 cards off of a 1 action point event doesn't always feel fantastic. But I shouldn't say that when we tap to draw, right? But realistically, the best games you're not tapping to draw. Regardless, this is the best solution to tapping to draw. 2 costs, only by throwing away your body you can float. Draw 2 cards, but if you have 4 or more cards without triggers on your field, draw 1 more card. So essentially a draw 3 event card. With an active trigger as well, which I don't know if you love that in the no trigger deck, but you're going to have triggers in the no trigger deck. You might as well have some that are going to help you, hopefully. And then the color trigger for the deck here is going to be this 4-cost Asuka card. She's going to have Impact Nullify, and then if you have 4 or more cards without trigger on your area, this card is going to gain Impact. She's a 4k BP, which is great, but again, she's a color trigger, so she's not going to count herself in this effect. And on top of that, if you filter her, if she's in life or whatever, this, that, and the other, she's not going to count as a no trigger. Keep that in mind. So just keep that in mind with the no trigger deck. You are going to have to squeeze in triggers, specials, finals, couple actives here and there, your raid triggers, the color trigger. So no trigger is going to ever truly be 100% no trigger deck. But at the same time, with what it wants on the field and stuff, because that's mainly what it wants, is a field full of no triggers, that's where it's going to really, really benefit itself. But yeah, guys, with that, that is every single card that we have from the upcoming Red Evangelion set. Again, it's looking pretty stupid, and definitely check out Yellow, because I'll be uploading that after this, or it'll be up by now whenever you watch this. Man, Yellow looks so dumb. What's even dumber about Yellow is look how many red cards we have and how much like options we have, even within like a little bit of deck mixing. With Yellow, there's one deck. It's just a straightforward set. It's like one deck you can build. I think there's like 5 cards in the entire set, basically, that I don't have in my deck, almost essentially. At least when it comes to unique cards. Regardless, it's crazy how like we're going to have to figure out what the best red decks are. There is going to be different builds and tests to try out. With Yellow, it's going to be pretty straightforward what you're going to want in the deck. So very, very interesting and different there. Purple's also going to be more like red, where we don't have a starter deck, but we do have different decks to build and maybe even some deck mixing. But yeah, regardless, guys, that is the Red Evangelion deck. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know if you think this is going to be anything that completely shuts down our meta or completely takes over regionals. I personally think that Red Kenshin, Purple Kenshin, quite a few other decks, Mustang and stuff, could easily outplay a deck like this. Maybe not easily, I shouldn't say, but this is a deck, at least with the big Shinji deck, the Evangelion Unit 1 deck, you're going to have to build up your energy. You're going to have to get the setup. You're going to need the raise in the sideline. That doesn't change the fact that by turn 3, you could have sidelined the perfect cards and just go for an instant turn 3. Like, honestly, it's possible. A turn 3, this guy has 4 cards underneath him when you raid him, and now he's attacking 3 times. Like, that is totally possible. But it also doesn't mean that you're not going to instantly get shut down by whatever you're up against, right? So yeah, in my opinion, when it comes to 7 costs, when it comes to cards that need to have a setup, certain cards in the sideline, things like that, they could struggle, especially when it comes to trying to make this work every time across 8 games at a regionals, right? Compared to Kenshin, Mustang, whatever you want to throw out there. Even Sukuna's a little less high roll because you just need to find your fingers. With this, you need to find the 4 different rays. And again, none of it's impossible. It's gonna pop off and it is gonna perform well, but it's gonna come down to a little bit of luck with this for sure. But yeah, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this gives you an insight into Red. I'll have some deck lists if you guys want to check them out, linked in the description as well, so definitely check them out. Yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know if you're going to be building Red or if you're looking into any other things. Let me know if this has motivated you to play another thing that's not Evangelion. I'm very curious. Is Toto going to just shut down all of Eva? I honestly wouldn't be shocked. Even Yellow just has this one card on the energy line where if it gets removed, it's GG. Toto, you gonna win? You gonna win nationals, bro? But yeah, with that, guys, appreciate everyone watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.